a lot of people also forgot that I took Landon to Bayern Munich and gave him a chance at one of the best teams in the world, to make an impact. And unfortunately, it didn't work out the way we all hoped.
You've never been afraid to make some of those decisions that maybe go against the grain or people don't agree with, but it's best for the team. Looking at this current U.S. men's national team, do you see any of those decisions Mauricio Pochettino might have to make that might not be popular but might be best for the team? Like you're hearing that they don't have the intensity, the fight. What would you do if you were in Mauricio Pochettino's shoes right now?
No, I think Mauricio is looking for all those pieces in his puzzle. Absolutely, you depend on the player material you have in front of you, and you hope that you have all the pieces for the puzzle to put it the right way together. So when I coached the U.S. team, I was very lucky to have a Jermaine Jones. He was an animal. Or DeMarcus Beasley on the left wing. He was just flying, even if he was in his 30s. But you need character. Or Clint Dempsey, I knew just give Clint the ball in the box and he will figure it out. And so on. And so you need characters, and he will look for characters. He will look for people in his team that can kind of switch a gear when things go not the right way. You need to have players that, okay, your goal down. Okay, who comes out now, and who is the one now who's kind of highly aggressive, and shows the other team that, so far, but not further, and I was lucky I had these players with the US. I know that they are mature enough, they are driven enough, and they are hungry enough to go for it, and that's why we went out of the group of death in Brazil and almost beat Belgium then in the round of 16, and then went in the Copa America in the Final Four, because they had such a hunger, and I admire that. So Mauricio right now is looking for that. Right. You want a number 6 that cleans up in front of your back line, because you got to protect your back line. If you play a back 4, you need to. That's what a bit the discussion I experienced with Kim Min-jae from Bayern Munich when he played for Napoli, and he was the best defender in Italy. He played in the back 3, so it was easier for him. Now suddenly he goes to Bayern Munich, and everybody thinks he's going to win all the titles right away, like Harry Kane thought in his first year he wins all the titles, but they didn't, because Leverkusen won them. They need a certain type of a protection, So at Bayern Munich they don't have a real kind of gritty number 6 like we had maybe with Kyle Beckerman and Jermaine Jones. They cleaned everything up in front of the back line, and so Mauricio is looking for players that protect him and protect the team, and hopefully he finds those a couple of pieces, because going forward, holy moly, we have so much power going forward in the US side now with players that are abroad, that prove their points in the big leagues overseas, and so there's so much quality there, but we have to make sure that we also protect it, defensively. But Mauricio knows that, and that's what he's working on.
So Jürgen, Charlie's tap dancing around it. It's been 11 years. I'm just going to ask you straight up, because I still can't believe it. One of the big decisions that you made during your tenure with U.S. Soccer is you left Landon Donovan off of the 2014 World Cup team. And since it's been 11 years, we could just talk as friends. We could talk casually about this. There's no pressure here, Jürgen. But I assume you made that decision because you thought that was what was best for the team in that particular moment. Do you have any regrets about leaving someone of his quality off of and his proven track record in the World Cup off of the team 11 years later?
No, I don't have any regrets, even if it really, really was a very tough decision, a tough moment, because he's such a outstanding individual, and obviously whatever he reached until that point has been unbelievable for an American player, and he was our poster boy for so many, many years. But the decision was very, very simple. There were other players on that roster in his spot that were better than him in that moment in time. Mm-hmm. We forget sometimes that 2 years prior to the World Cup, he took a year off. Mm-hmm. Then he came back and then he played for the Galaxy, not scoring anymore, not providing assists anymore. But badly he wanted to go to the World Cup because it would have been his 4th World Cup. And I totally understand all the motivations. And a lot of people also forgot that I took Landon to Bayern Munich and gave him a chance at one of the best teams in the world, to make an impact. And unfortunately, it didn't work out the way we all hoped, that he breaks through there. It didn't. but he also was a bit unlucky in a couple of games there where he could have scored, but it didn't go in the ball and stuff like that. The decision was purely football wise. It was purely that I was convinced, or the coaching staff was convinced, that the players that we chose were in that moment in time ahead of Landon because of all the decisions he made before that World Cup, But I knew also, obviously, leaving Landon out, whoa, that will create a big wave, and you will have quite a few enemies against you. But that's and there was nothing personal with Landon at all. I really admired him and whatever he's done and it still is. But these are decisions that managers have to make. Managers have to do. And I had managers in my career. I was very fortunate, like Franz Beckenbauer, Bertie Vogts with the national team. I had Cesar Luis Menotti. I had Trapattoni in Italy. I had Ossie Ardiles, the World Cup winner from Argentina. And I had so many great coaches, and often I saw them making decisions which I, as a player, didn't understand. But they explained it afterwards to me. They said, for this and this reason, I made that decision. Like Arsene Wenger once, in my year at Monaco, he left constantly Yuri Djokaev on the bench, and we were fighting for the title in France. And I went to him and said, Coach, why do you leave Yuri Djokaev on the bench, and he said, simple, because he has to learn. He has to learn. No, he's not professional yet. You have to show him what it means to be a professional. So I had in my team in Monaco, Emmanuel Petit, Lilian Thuram, and Yuri Djokaev. That 6 years later, I was in basically then in they went then to the World Cup 98 years later, and they won it. In my time, they were not national team players yet. But Arsene Wenger came to me and says, you have to explain to them what it means to be a professional, because obviously living in Monaco and on the Côte d'Azur in southern France, there's a lot of distractions that you have to deal with. And so these decisions that coaches then make that are not popular decisions, obviously, that are difficult decisions. And obviously you have a player then, when you tell that player that, I'm sorry, but I chose a different player to go with, they're going to be mad at you. They're going to tell you in your face that they don't agree, which he did. And good for him, because he stood up for himself. But still, you have to make that decision. Also, when I coached Germany, I had to leave players out that exceptional performed in the 2 years lead up towards the World Cup in Germany 2006, like Kevin Kurani was one of them, and he scored many goals for me and he got us there where we were. But I knew for this tournament I need a different type of a player in a different position, so I chose, I think it was David Odonko, a very young kid, 19 years old, but extremely fast, who then provided us the goal in the third group stage game against Poland to qualify us for the next round. And so you make those technical decisions because you believe from a technical perspective, from a purely soccer perspective, that those are the right decisions. But obviously you also understand that from an emotional side and from a media side and a fan base side, it's going to be a big deal. And that's also why we waited, us as a coaching staff, why we waited until the last moment when we were at Stanford in this training camp, and then to have the conversations with 7 players that did not go to the World Cup in Brazil, because we knew if we do it too early, then it will be so much media swirl, that is not, it's not productive then for the team.
You're still here? Yes! I absolutely love that. Listen, while I have your attention, if you want more average to good soccer content, this is the channel for you. Go check out our other videos. Go check out our playlists. And if you're really liking what you're seeing, I don't know how you couldn't, hit like, hit subscribe, of course, and then turn on your notifications so that you do not miss anything that we drop or when we go live. We'd really appreciate that. We'll see you next time.